Okay.
Okay. All right. Great. So we're rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's just explore.
Great. Thank you for coming. I'm Christian Ørsted, and I'm sitting here with Amy Edmondson, professor of Harvard Business School, and rated 7th most influential HR thinker in the world. Trying to embarrass you right off the bat here. And author of this book here, Teaming. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm wondering, now we conducted a full day of MBA lecture at AVT Business School. What is your unique take on leadership and management?
I think of leadership as the activity, the function that is required to get organizations and the people in them to do extraordinary things. Leadership isn't needed for the ordinary. And by extraordinary, I don't mean fantastic feats like the rescue of 33 Chilean miners. I mean small, extraordinary abilities like the ability to see another person's point of view and really accept it as a point of view that's as important as your own. That's an extraordinary thing. So I think of leadership as the function in an organization that gets us able to act and think in ways that are larger than our own needs and small concerns and interests, and to line up to together do great things.
Mm-hmm. And yet those things are very tied together. You're talking about the Chilean miners and the day-to-day conversations that we have. How does that tie together?
I think they are tied together because in order to accomplish an astonishing success like the rescue of 33 Chilean miners, 750 meters under rock that's harder than granite with no known access, no egress, people have to work together extraordinarily well. They have to work together tirelessly. They have to be innovative. They have to listen intently to each other's perspectives. And then they have to experiment, try things out, learn from the failures that they invariably will encounter in the early part of the process, learn quickly and try something else, and then keep going. This is both an exhilarating and a potentially very exhausting way to work. But it's the way that new discoveries are made. It's the way that innovation occurs, and often the way that great results are achieved.
Well, that's one of the things that really piques my interest in your research, is that you take learning in a crisis setting and a crisis context. And usually I meet organizations where things are going well, then we can afford the learning. But when we're in crisis mode, we have a very difficult time hearing dissenters, listening to everybody, including all points of view. What do you see?
I think that part of the challenge is that we have historically in business equated learning with something that's done in a classroom. You know, we invest in training, we invest in leadership development. That's learning. That's done offline. And then we get back online and do the real work of the organization. Nothing could be further from the truth in a fast-paced, fast-moving, fast-changing world in which the knowledge is constantly changing and the interdependency is very great indeed. So in a world where the answers aren't clear, in a world where the pace of change is high and the work is fundamentally very interdependent, we have no choice but to learn as we go, to be learning actively in action. So I sometimes refer to this as execution as learning. It's not learning, then execution. It's execution with a learning mindset and the discipline of paying very, very careful attention to what the experiences we're having are teaching us.
And in that frame, you have developed the concept of teaming, because something about work is different. Yet every time I open a new management book, it's proposed that now work is different. And I'm wondering, what do you see being the different now from management previously?
One of the ways that the work is changing is toward greater and greater need to work together to get important things done. So that's greater interdependence. Full stop. The work has more interdependence, whether it's taking care of a cancer patient, rescuing miners, or designing a new product. You can't do any of those things well without a great deal of coordination and collaboration among a variety of people with slightly different skill sets than your own. More and more of the work that we're confronted with in today's organizations has those interdependencies. And, making matters worse, the interdependencies are constantly shifting. So it's not as if, okay, we've figured out where the interdependencies are, let's create a nice team and let them stay together for the next 2 years. It doesn't work that way. Things are shifting too frequently and too fast to compose stable teams that can just get it all right and get better and better at getting it right. So I use the word teaming to shed light on this phenomenon. The fact is, teamwork is as important as it ever was, if not more important, but stable, well-composed, well-managed teams are increasingly a thing of the past. There's fewer and fewer aspects of the work that you can throw a very stable team at it and expect them to stay together for a long time. Sometimes we have a small core team, but then lots of other people teaming in and out of the process because they're only needed for a smaller portion of the work. Or sometimes we have 24/7 operations that require just very complex scheduling. Imagine firefighting crews or something like that, where it's not always going to be a stable team by necessity. So you've got to be able to get up to speed quickly with a new set of people and team with them rather than being on a team with a set of very familiar people.
And so different skills needed from being a member of a stable team to being able to do teaming as a verb?
Well, the managerial skills that are needed for stable teams are first and foremost the ability to design a good team, to compose a good team, to get the right members on it, to give them the supports and the training and the coaching that they need. So it's more about design and structuring of a group to be able to do the work, whereas teaming is much more about relating on the fly, being able to quickly get up to speed with someone new that you don't know very well, letting them know who you are, what you bring, what you're trying to get done, what you're up against, and then just as quickly finding out those same aspects about them. So teaming is much more about building fast relationships, building trust on the fly, than about the managerial structures of good teamwork.
And what does that entail for the team members? Is there different skills that need to be trained in order to...
It puts a greater emphasis on interpersonal skills, on the ability, on emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and pick up subtle cues about what other people are thinking and feeling, to be responsive to that. It requires curiosity. You've got to be fundamentally very curious about who other people are so that you don't forget to recognize the value they're bringing to the joint endeavor. All of us are hardwired to favor our own perspective. That's natural. And if we stop there, we don't get very far in teaming. So teaming calls for interpersonal skills, for curiosity, for empathy. It's part of an emotional intelligence, the ability to feel another person's perspective and take that seriously. And inquiry, the ability to ask questions, following up on that curiosity. And I think passion and energy, commitment to, this is a hard way to work, really. It's not easy. So in order to be willing to do this and to be willing to get better and better at it, I have to care deeply about the work and the purpose of our organization.
But that sounds how a lot of leaders would like to perceive themselves. Is there a bridge or blind angles, blind spots that we have that keeps us from being efficient in teaming?
I think you're right. I think many leaders, if not most leaders, would see themselves as passionate about an important purpose, as curious, as caring about others, and yet in action, particularly when the stakes are high and things are heating up and things are moving fast, it's very natural, very spontaneous because of the way we're hardwired, that our own perspective seems more important than others. It just feels accurately true, right? It feels like what I see is reality, not is my perception of reality. And so all of us have a gap between the values we hold and the behaviors we aspire to consistently display and our actual behavior. Chris Ardress called this the gap between our espoused theories and our espoused values and our theories in use, or our enacted values. We can't help it. And I think we have to be a little bit forgiving of even ourselves, because we aren't always living up to our ideals. And yet, our job, I think, is to just continually strive to do better.
So, I'm a good manager, I'm open to new ideas, yet if you don't agree with me, I have an emotional response sometimes. What do you recommend I do?
I recommend a simple sort of 3-step mental process, right? It's I got this from Larry Wilson, who I worked for many years. Stop, challenge, choose. So stop is the simple act of interrupting the emotion, which feels so appropriate and so natural. I'm frustrated, or I'm angry, or I find you disagreeable. I have to stop, sometimes take a deep breath, and then just very quickly inside my own head, challenge. Is this perception really based on verifiable fact? And is it helping me and or helping us get where we need to go? And if not, then I need to choose a different response. And the different response should fundamentally be one of, at the very least, curiosity. So I have to shift from, I can't believe you see it that way, to, I wonder why you see it that way. That's actually not that big a leap. It's still hard to do, but if I can remind myself to just be a little bit curious as to why you're so wrong-headed, then I may remember to actually ask you a genuine question, and then I may learn, and then you may learn, and we may get somewhere together.
But what if it is a group dynamic? We do a meeting in a team, and we have a lot of different points of view. As a manager, what do you recommend I do to make sure that the discussion is kept on track and it's a process worthy of all team members' time?
I think as a manager, one of your first responsibilities is to manage the process. And manage process doesn't mean, it could involve, but it doesn't mean a sort of checklist like let's keep the agenda moving forward. It means great attention to the phenomena that don't always get our attention. Who looks uncomfortable? Who's been silent? And making sure to bring them in, making sure to, and let's use the whiteboard. Let's get the ideas we have out there. Let's look at them, let's consider them together. Let's dig in, let's analyze. So we have to understand that good process around important issues or decisions does not happen naturally. It doesn't spontaneously erupt that we have beautiful analysis and wonderful inclusion of multiple perspectives. No, it takes effort. It takes leadership to address and keep that process alive.
Yeah, and it also takes a sense of psychological safety. You discuss in your work how if there's not a sense of psychological safety, the most important dissenters might not offer the critical information we need to make the right decisions.
So one of the most important jobs of any manager, any leader, is to work like crazy to build a culture or a climate of psychological safety. And I define that as a culture in which everyone understands that they have both a responsibility and an expectation to speak up with ideas, questions, concerns, and that they won't be punished or humiliated for doing so. So it's okay to raise crazy ideas. It's okay to talk about mistakes. It's okay to bring up failures and so on. And I understand that that's part of my job as an individual, and a leader understands that it's part of his or her job to create that shared belief, or else we won't come up with anything new. We won't innovate. We won't catch and correct error when it comes along, because human beings are very sensitive to interpersonal risks. We are quite concerned about what others think of us. And so the natural fallback position is that I want you to think well of me, so I'm not going to say something I think might make me look stupid or incompetent or intrusive or any other negative attribute. And so it's the job of the leader, the highest status person around, to make sure everyone understands anything goes. It's required. The nature of the work today requires us to be this way, to have this kind of environment.
But when we are facing critical challenges, often we just like to know what to do. If there's a fire, you want to know how to put it out quickly. If you have a space shuttle with a crisis, you want to move on and eliminate all the concerns that are not really important. And in hindsight, you will know which was the important pieces of information. How do you distinguish that?
If the building is on fire, we must quickly get to the exits and get out of here. The fascinating thing, that's clear, right? The fascinating thing is that human beings often treat the situation that they're wrestling with around the table as if it were the building on fire, and respond in similarly hurried and rote manners, right? It's a rote and an important learned rote response to get out of a burning building. We should do that. However, we should not mistake actually an important strategic issue about a potential risk with our product launch or a hiring decision or a company acquisition as a burning building. It isn't. In fact, we may feel a lot of time pressure. It may be critically important that we get it right. You mentioned the safety in the shuttle program. That's an example of a topic for which it's critically important that we get it right. Nonetheless, I would argue that it then becomes even more important that we get process right, because left to our own devices, we'll come up with the simplest but unlikely to be the best answer. So the challenge of talking about these issues is that clearly many of the types of decisions that we study and analyze and try to make sense of have occurred in the past. By definition, they've occurred in the past. So then we analyze them and we try to use them to explain to people the kinds of dynamics that are quite expected and how problematic they are. And then people get worried about the hindsight bias. They say, well, it's easy to see that it's flawed in retrospect. But at the time, nobody could have known. That's generally not the case, because you can generally dig into the nobody could have known statement and find it to be faulty. You can find a half dozen people who knew, but were afraid to speak up.
And from a management perspective, what keeps us from getting that knowledge?
I think when we are a manager, when we're in charge, when there's a lot at stake, we become in the grips of a fear response. We might not label it as that, because it's not like we're terrified and we want to run out of the building, but we're anxious. There's a low level of, okay, we got to get this right. And I feel when I'm anxious, when someone is anxious, they are more likely to feel like it is their duty to control things, not to enable things. But trying to control almost always backfires, because you don't get the subtle data. You don't get the hidden concerns and ideas that in fact are mission critical to bring forward.
What surprises you when you study teamwork and organizations?
I guess it surprises me again and again how, as human beings, our very natural responses to some of the social situations we're in, by which I mean workplace social situations, are so counterproductive. And why is that surprising? Well, it's surprising because we would imagine we're so capable, human beings. We've done remarkable things, individually and collectively. But we evolved as human beings for a different time. We evolved to respond quickly to a sudden threat, a saber-toothed tiger, and we run. And in the modern complex world that we live in, there are very few saber-toothed tigers, and yet we have a bad habit of responding to that initial feeling of anxiety or fear in the wrong way. Just when we should be digging in and analyzing and problem solving and learning as fast as we can, we have much more of a kind of a fight or flight response. We're not as, sort of rational as we think we are. And that's a perpetual surprise.